Welcome. I'm Asa Lanham, the Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of Innovaro. This is the second part B, in our series on innovation for entrepreneurs. And in this session, we're going to talk about making contact, how you actually reach out, what you should expect to do and see when dealing with a venture capitalist. And in the previous one, we talked about before you start doing your prep work, this is how you make contact, and then we're going to talk about what to do following on in later sessions. Right? So in contacting the VC, venture capital people are very busy, right? And you get all kinds of ways to do it. But let me tell you right off the bat, forget cold calling of venture capitalists. It's not going to happen. They get so many calls, it's not funny. You're just one more cold call in the middle. A lot of venture capitalists you'll see have a thing on their website that says send in your business plan. Don't bother. All right, with introductions, venture capitalists see, quite frankly, 1,000 business plans a year. 1,000, right? They're going to invest in maybe 10 of those, maybe 12 of those, right? Normally not a lot more than that. But you need to do something that gets you out of that pack of just one more in the stack, because I can guarantee if it comes in cold, it goes across the desk and it goes into the can. Right? So what you really want to do is you want to get a warm introduction. You need to find some way for someone to give you that connection that will make that person or persons pick up your submission and take a look at it. Right? So part of the ways you can do that is you can find or build a relationship with a VC. You can use social networking to help. Find out in social networking what they're involved in, what kind of charities they participate in, what kind of work groups they are in. Those are the kinds of things that'll help you do it. Look at startup corporate lawyers. A corporate lawyer that helps with startups. First of all, they see a lot of deals, right? And they're going to have some idea whether your deal's worth spending a dime on or a time on or not. And they know a lot of VCs, right? So if you can find a corporate lawyer, and you always need a good lawyer. Throughout this, you'll hear me harp on get a good lawyer, right? They know a lot of VCs. They can help make an introduction. They're worth their weight. If you know a recruiter that focuses on startups, and if you don't, then you ought to meet one, particularly if you like startups, and do that. Or certainly you can take a look at companies that are in their portfolio with the venture guys. You get to know some of the key execs there and what they're doing, and tell them about your idea, and maybe they'll make you the introduction to that. You want a warm introduction, right? Use that relationship. Use that as the way you get an introduction. That way you have someone that the venture person knows, the venture person trusts or respects, that brings you in and says, hey, this is somebody you should talk to, right? Now let's talk about hearing back from the venture capitalists. VCs are busy. Everybody's busy. These guys have got a lot of stuff going on, right? They got lots of new plans coming in. They got companies in the portfolio. They're raising funds. They're doing all kinds of things. They're busy. So what you've got to do is that when you try to engage with them and give them information, keep your emails and messages short. Keep them to the point, right? Don't spend 3 minutes telling them you'd like to hear from them. Say, hey, look, I sent your stuff in. I'd really like to hear from you. I'm going to be in town, or whatever it is, and get on with it, right? They'll appreciate that, and it'll be a lot easier on you, right? You got to be persistent sometimes. Be polite, but be persistent, right? Let them know you're not trying to nag them, but if you haven't heard back, saying, hey, look, I don't want to nag you, but I'm following up on this. Believe me, if they don't have the time and you do that, they will find the time, even if it's only to tell you no, right? And by the way, when they tell you no, say thank you, and we'll talk about what happens when you get a no later on. But you've got to make sure that you get their attention and do that, right? Most VCs are going to tell you if they're not interested, and frankly, for a lot of them, the sooner they tell you, the better off they are. That's because they've got a lot of these, and it may be a soft no. We'll talk more about soft no's later on in terms of what those look like and what they mean and those kinds of things. But generally, if you're out there trying to really get a venture going and doing those kinds of things, you may be someone that's going to be a great success. This may not be the right one for them for lots of reasons, but they don't necessarily want to be in a situation where they've told you no and said, hey, look, they irritate you, they anger you. They're not trying to do that, but they are trying to be honest with you, and that's important, right? In some cases, one of the things you can do is cultivate the assistant. In my career, I worked for a guy that was one of the senior execs in IBM. He had over 5,000 people reporting up through his organization to him. His assistant was called Sarge. And Sarge ran access to him, ran a lot of the things that went in. They never had to go past her desk for things to get done. She made the connections and everything else. And the assistant can get you to the person or can make sure you never get there. So you need to make sure, don't be phony about it, right? But if you're going to be really personable and nice to the venture guy, be personal and nice to their assistant. They appreciate it as well. They're harried, right? Now, if you are on a tight timeline, let them know, right? It's been a number of cases where you go, hey, look, I know it's short notice, or I know it's tight time, but I'm going to be in town for just 2 days. Is there any way we can get together, even if it's just for 30 minutes, breakfast, coffee, lunch, I'll give you a ride to the airport. I will tell you, I have actually talked to people, giving them rides to airports, giving them rides between meetings. The nice part about it is you have them as a captive audience in your car. The bad news about it is you better be prepared for that. So those are very important things. So don't panic if you don't hear back from the VC. You will, but you got to stay on it to make it happen. And that's all I want to say about making contact. We've given you some ideas on how to do it and what to do about making sure you hear back. And we'll look forward to seeing you in the next session. Thank you.